What's going on there, YouTube? It's Gores here, giving you guys a deck profile for the Rikka deck I piloted this weekend at 3 separate tournaments. Day 1, we took first place. We took no prisoners there. We just absolutely bodied everybody. Day 2, we ended up losing to Salomon Great, taking second place. And Day 3, we went to a case tournament, finishing 5-1 after Swiss, and then winning top 8, losing in top 4. Only losing to 2 Flaunderies, back-to-back same player, happens. It's super good deck, really hard for this deck to play through. Other than that, we beat Spright, we beat Tearlament, we beat Sword Soul, we beat every deck that matters in this format. Even Eldritch Despia had no match for this deck. It's a super, super powerful control deck, and I can't wait to share it with you guys. So let's just get into the deck profile, and I'll explain it as we go. So first off, we have 3 copies of Rikka Princess. Rikka Princess is like its own hand trap / grave trap. You can activate it from your hand or graveyard when your opponent activates a monster effect while you control a Rikka, tribute a monster, and negate it. And the field spell allows us to tribute our opponent's monsters for cost, so we can tribute our opponent's monster to shuffle this into the deck and negate. And the shuffling into deck is also cost. In addition to that, she also summons herself, so she's a nice extender for the deck. Next up, we have Rikka Rikka Petal. So at the end of the turn, Rikka Petal comes back every single end phase of our opponent's turn as long as we only control plants or we have no monsters. And then once per turn, she allows us to search our deck for a Rikka monster and either add it to the hand or send it to the graveyard. So really powerful card. This deck is all about the grind game, and this is what helps us get there. So really strong card. Next up, third most important card in the deck, Medan, the Rikka Fairy. You tribute a plant monster, and then you can special summon her from your hand. So if we control the field spell, this card turns into a kaiju, and then whenever she's special summoned, we get to search our deck for a Rikka spell or trap. So it's just an extra 3 copies of the field spell or Rikka Glamour if need be. Next up, we have 2 copies of Snowdrop, the Rikka Fairy. We tribute one of our plant monsters, summon her and another plant from hand, and then we can target a plant we control and make all plant monsters that level. Sometimes this just becomes super cracked and makes us double Strino, and let's just continue from there. Other times it just makes us our teardrop, it gets us our extender, and then once again, if we have the field spell, this is just a kaiju that puts 2 bodies on board. Next up, we have 2 copies of Primula. Whenever one of our monsters is tributed, we get to special summon her, and then we can also target herself or any 2 plants we control and increase their level by 2, allowing us to exceed. 2 is definitely the right number. I've seen some builds play 3 and some builds play 1. I think 2 is perfect, just because Glamour needs to search a level 4 with a different name, and we can recycle the Princess. So I think 2 Primula is the right ratio. Next up, we have 1 Hellbore. Anytime our opponent targets one of our monsters, we get to tribute her from our hand or field to negate the card that targeted our monsters. So it does have to negate a monster effect, so it does stop effect failure, which is pretty strong. And then if she is in the graveyard, we can tribute a plant monster and special summon her in defense. So she's like a kaiju from the graveyard if we have the field spell. Next up, we have 2 Lonefire. It's an honorary Rikka. I didn't opt to play 3 just because if our opponent hand traps this and this was our only play, we basically lose, but at the same time, we get 17 flex spots in this deck, so why not play extra Rikkas? And if they have it, hey, they have it. So it's an honorary Rikka monster. Next up for the Rikka spells, we played 3 Kunkon and 3 Glamour. I did not opt to play Flurries. I don't think Flurries is the best card in this deck. Kunkon is obviously the best card in the deck, allowing us to set a Rikka spell or trap once per turn, and then also once per turn being able to tribute one of our opponent's monsters, and then Glamour being able to search any Rikka monster in the deck, and if we tribute a plant monster, we get to search for 2, so if we Glamour while we have the Kunkon, we can tribute our opponent's monster and search for 2 cards, which is just free value. It's just free pluses over our opponent. 1 Terraforming, because it's an extra copy of Kunkon. And then for the last Rikka cards, we're playing 1 Sheet and 1 Tranquility. I think a lot of people sleep on this card. It lets us play around DD Crow, which is seeing a lot more play in this format. And then in addition to that, we can also do some pretty cool extension plays with this card, tributing our opponent's monster and summoning 2 Rikkas. Protecting our petal is sometimes the most necessary thing for us, so definitely enjoyed playing the 1-of, especially since it's searchable and recyclable. Same thing with Sheet. This is just the deck's Widow Anchor, and if we have Kunkon, we actually get to tribute one of their monsters and then take one of their monsters, which can just be so devastating to a lot of decks, especially Spright and Tearlament. The best part about this deck is it all tributes for cost, so like Tearlament is basically a buy for us. So we have 15 flex spots in the deck. Usually I like to play hand traps when I have flex spots, just like DDD. So we have 3 Ash Blossom, 3 DD Crow, 3 Ghost Ogre, and 3 copies of Effect Veiler. This is just, I feel like, the most impactful hand traps in the format as 3-Os. Ghost Ogre does a lot more than I expected it to. I was playing Imperm over him, but over Ghost Ogre, but like I don't know, it's a love-hate relationship between both of them right now. And then this is a card that I definitely am probably going to be cutting for Ghost Bell, which is Ghost Mourner. Mourner was like really good in some matchups, and then like super lackluster in others. Like every time I played against Tearlament, like, and I had this, I wished that this was just Bell. And then like against Fluanderies, this card is literally, it does nothing, absolutely nothing. And obviously Bell wouldn't either, but like this card just like, it really hurt to see this card. And then the last flex spot we played, the one called by the grave. So the main deck, you just play it like a really passive control deck where you're just trying to just out resource your opponent by tributing their monsters. So if you've ever played Layer of Darkness, this is definitely the deck for you. So for the extra deck, we have 2 copies of Teardrop. Teardrop is just our boss monster, being able to tribute our opponent's monsters on our opponent's turn and then gain 200 and then tribute more monsters and just keep boosting her throughout the game is just really important. And it also gives our opponent a threat, especially if they're on something like Spright. And like sometimes they'll make the Toad and we'll just tribute it off. We'll use its effect to tribute off. They'll chain Toad, we'll chain Princess, tribute another monster, and then they just lost 2 cards to try and stop Teardrop, which is just super powerful. Next up, we have Rikka Queen Strenna. Strenna just lets us recycle our Rikka cards, and then whenever she's tributed, you get to summon a Plant Xyz monster on top of her, so you can summon something like Kazanashi. Kazanashi is probably the most situational Rikka Xyz, but still necessary to play just because she's kind of like one of those little spots, like if we have the Medan and Teardrop isn't powerful enough, like Kazanashi can definitely save it, and then also being able to bring back monsters from either graveyard can come up a lot, so that's pretty good. And then like it just gives us that extra like flexibility if we do need something to make. And then the card that we always make off the Strenna is the Sacred Tree Beast Hyperiton. Hyperiton is just like a negate, but like anytime you activate a card effect, you get to attach the same type of card from your graveyard. So if you activate a spell, you can attach a spell to it. So it just turns into a Macabre for us. Like we can negate monsters, we can negate spells, we can negate traps. Just depends on what we played on our turn. So really enjoyed that card. That card was cracked all day. So for flex spots and grind game, I opted to play the Zodiac engine. It literally did not come up once. Zeus was not made at all in either 3 days. But I mean, for the most part, this engine could be replaced with the Winter Cherries engine, which I have been thinking about. So just playing like 1 Gigantic, 1 Hulk, and then 1 Tearlament level 5, and then just Winter Cherries people. But honestly, it never came up, y'all. Like this never came up. This could be any 3 cards you wanted. And then for the plant monster links and generic plant support, we played the 2 Dance Peon. This card was clutch like literally all day. Like anytime our opponent would stop us, or like anytime we needed to push further to get there, like we could just make this and just pop off because of it. So then we have the 1 Jasmine. Jasmine, she was good when she came up, but like most of the time, like making the dance pawn is just so much better. But did have a situation where I used her to tribute Strenna, so I got Hyperiton, and then I searched and summoned out Medan, and then searched for Concon, and then Concon grabbed Glamour, and then Snowdropped and cleared their board because of this, and then swung for game. And then we have the Bengal Lancer. Bengal Lancer just lets us bounce stuff. It's the best rank 4 for plants that we can make, so no brainer there. And then the card I did not make either 3 days, but it did come up in playtesting. 1 Perialis, the Empress of Blossoms. So she didn't come up, but she is pretty strong just because she can summon back level 5s from the graveyard. So that's it for the deck profile, y'all. Love this deck. Y'all cannot express enough how much I love this deck. Definitely, I'm not like the biggest fan of Spright or Tearlament in this format. And I just feel like there are better options to play that people aren't seeing. I know they aren't taking majorities of the spots, but I think this is definitely one of the best rogue contenders someone can play other than Eldritch and Fluanderies. Definitely try this deck out at your locals. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you go follow Palmanga Mats on Facebook and use the promo code GORES10% to save 10% on all their products. And without further ado, this has been Gores signing off.